Now, please welcome to the stage a man who has shaped animation of the last quarter of a century, the director of Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Cars, Cars 2, the chief creative officer of Disney and Pixar, the great John Lasseter.
Wow, great. How are you?
Have a seat.
Hi, everybody.
It's all for you, John. There's a young chap down there in a pit lane outfit, which
That's awesome.
which is pretty cool. John, I think I want to start off with how different this film is from the first movie. I think we saw it there in the trailer, but we have a clip that sets it up. It's the opening of the film, if you want to set it up.
When we at Pixar, when we always do a sequel for a film, we will only do a sequel when we have a great story, and we like to do things that are different than the original. I mean, we all know those kind of sequels that are made seemingly just to print money that are exactly the same story as the first one. And at Pixar, we always strive to do something different. And with Cars, I love the world of cars being alive and there's no humans. It's something that's very kind of personal for me because my dad was a manager of a parts department at a Chevrolet dealership in Southern California where I grew up. And so I always loved the idea of cars being alive. And so we wanted to do something really different for the second film. And I've always loved spy movies ever since I was a little kid. There was this American TV show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. that was on when I was a little kid. And I just loved that show. And so we thought it'd be awesome to maybe take a look at the possibility of doing a completely different genre for the second film. And the one thing I love about the spy movie genre is spy cars with the cool gadgets and all that stuff. And in our world, the spy car and the spy are one and the same. And I thought this could be really fun to do and something that's very different. So, as any good spy movie, it starts with a kick-ass spy opening.
Right.
And so we have a little clip from that the spy opening.
Fantastic.
Where you get to meet Finn McMissile, voiced by Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, for the first time. So here's the spy opening from Cars 2.
Bit of a cliffhanger there.
I know it's just a clip, but I always like, I want to see the rest of it. Sorry.
But you can go in 1,000 different directions when you're making a film like this.
Yeah.
And, obviously, you went with spy movies, but did you go through any other iterations of this movie before you settled on this?
It's interesting how this idea evolved, because when I was after Cars was finished, it's a very Americana story about Lightning McQueen being stuck on old Route 66 and learning that the journey in life is a reward. It's something that I kind of experienced myself after directing, through the 1990s. I directed the first 3 Pixar films, and I had 4 of my 5 children during that time, and my wife said, you better be careful. One day you're going to wake up and your kids will have gone to college and you will have missed it. And so we took the summer of 2000 off and got a motorhome and traveled all over the United States without no plan. And I really learned that the journey in life is a reward that weekend. And so I really wanted to create a film like that. So that's what Cars was about. And after we finished it and I traveled around the world doing publicity for Cars, I had Cars as characters kind of on the brain in my mind, and as I traveled around the world, I kept looking at Tokyo and London and Italy and Paris, and from a point of view of cars being alive, and I thought, this could be really fun. And I thought, the first movie was very Americana. I thought that the next one would be fun to take these characters and go around the world. The spy idea came from actually a scene that we were developing in the first movie, Cars. Lightning McQueen is taking Sally on a first date, and the original, because when I grew up in high school, dates were you took girls to the movie theater.
Yeah.
So the lights were dim and you could make out, and no one would pay attention to you. But and so I thought, well, a movie. A car going to the movies would be a drive-in movie theater, and so we needed a movie playing on the screen, and that's where my love of spy movies came out. And that's where we first created Finn McMissile. Well, the development of the story shifted the the location of that scene to be about the cruising and the neon lights turning on. And so the spy movie got cut, but I never really forgot about it. So traveling around the world, and I thought spy movies, like, they kind of go around the world. And so that's where it came. And I also had been to my first Formula One race, which I'm crazy about Formula One now.
Okay.
And I really wanted Lightning McQueen to race against all these other cool race cars from around the world.
Oh, fantastic.
And they do more kind of European style racing. And so all that kind of came together, and we really set out to have fun with this film and make a really very different type of film.
As you travelled around the world, were you surprised in a way by the enduring impact of Cars? I mean, it really caught on in a big way. I mean, obviously it's sold lots of merchandise, lots of DVD units over the years.
It's interesting how Cars, when it first came out, it did quite well around the world. Not as well as some of our other films, but unlike any film in cinema history, it's gotten more popular as time has gone on. I mean, people have discovered it and keep discovering it, and the products keep selling, and it's pretty staggering. I mean, not that I make movies. To me, I make movies to really entertain audiences, and I love quality is the best business plan. We always strive to make the best stories in all of our stories. And also, if a product is being made based upon our characters, I really want the products to be as high quality as possible. And I'm a big kid. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing a kind of Cars 2 Hawaiian shirt here, and I love, the toys and the products, but I want them to be really high quality. Well, the toys took off, and they kept going up, as far as the amount they were being sold. And so since the first movie has come out based on one movie, they told me that $10 billion worth of products have been sold.
Wow. That's not
after
bad.
one movie.
That helps pay for a shirt.
Yeah, pays for the shirt. And but anyway, it's been very exciting to see all over the world how it's been caught on. But it's really exciting because I think to me my what I enjoy the most is when I'm out in the world and I see sort of a family or a kid or something like that. It's like holding a character of ours, and they don't know who I am. It doesn't matter, but it's like that character really means something to them in order to have that. Absolutely. And that's how I always view the products that we make.
Absolutely. Making this movie, directing films, is no longer your day job. For the people here, can you tell them exactly what your day job involves?
About 5 years ago, Disney bought Pixar, and I was made by Steve Jobs and Bob Iger. I was made Chief Creative Officer of course, Pixar Animation Studios, which I was, but then of the Walt Disney Animation Studios, Disney Toon Studios, and I'm Principal Creative Advisor for Walt Disney Imagineering. And so with that comes a responsibility of kind of overseeing everything creative that goes on at each of those studios. And so I tend to work with the directors. Each of those studios is what I call a filmmaker-driven studio. It's the way Pixar is, and we converted Disney over to that. And what that means is all the ideas of the stories come from the directors, come from, they kind of own the stories and the films. And it was very different than the rest of Hollywood. We surround. Then we surround all the directors with what we call the Creative Brain Trust or the Creative Story Trust, and that is all the other directors and key story people. And each of the directors are responsible for showing their movies internally to the studio every 3 to 4 months. And then all of us get together and we then look at it and then give notes to the directors for to try to make their movies the best they could be. And each of these films takes about 4 years to make.
Okay.
And so I'm working with the creative teams for all the movies and overseeing all the projects. And also at Imagineering, I'm helping design the theme parks and theme parks attractions based upon our characters. And in Disneyland Paris, the new Toy Story Playland that kind of opened up, which is a
Okay.
little mini land with our characters. And in California, we're doing a whole Cars land, which is pretty amazing. And that's really fun. That's like dessert, you know. I don't call that work. It's
In other
really
words,
fun.
yeah.
And but in my chief creative position, I'm kind of working with the creative teams heading up each project. When I direct a film, it's more of like I'm now kind of the storyteller and the guy that's kind of creating the film, working in collaboration with my team, and then I get to work with the individual artists at Pixar, which I think is one of the things I really enjoy doing. So, and I think it's great to have a sort of myself as kind of the creative head of the studio actually be a film director as well.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of, so I know what they're going through, and I'm able to help the young directors, the first-time directors, and help mentor them.
It's basically the coolest job ever, essentially. If you want to, you don't have to be
Yes.
shy. Yeah, it's fine.
I do have the coolest job ever. It's a
when
lot of
you-
work. What's interesting though is that I have 5 sons, and I've told each of them, I said, I want you to choose something that you really, really love to do as a job, and then you'll never work a day in your life. And they've seen how hard it is that I work, but I just love every day, and I don't even think of it as a job. It's just so much fun.
How do you find time to direct a film?
Well, that was a big challenge, and on Cars 2, given that it's the first movie I've directed while I've been sort of in my new role, overseeing all the studios, I really I've delegated a lot, because all the people that I've worked with on many of the films, the kind of leadership, and so I've really I stayed focused on what I knew was important, and it's developing the story, and then kind of crafting the filmmaking side of it, the layout and working in editorial to get it story reels edited right, and,
Sure.
and really craft the film, and then working with all the other departments as much as I could, and then I was able to delegate with that. But I also that something kind of neat happened while I was working on Cars 2. The iPad came out. Yeah, now you have to understand, Steve Jobs is one of my best friends, and he was CEO of Pixar for 20-something years, and founded Pixar and was owner of Pixar, and kind of helped make me the leader I am. He's just an amazing guy, but I am a big technology geek, and I get to go to work with Dad, a couple times a year, meaning I get to go down and hang out with Steve at Apple and get to see all the advanced stuff. So when the iPad was coming out, I had to have one opening day, and I was able to get one because I knew people, and. And so, but I almost immediately started using it in an interesting way, because I love the photo and the video kind of part of it. And I started, when I was so busy at work with doing all the other stuff and working on that, I was not able to get to, like, say, early in Cars 2, the art department had so much amazing art for me to review and see and give comments on. So I had them start just downloading on my iPad all of the drawings that were done digitally, or they scanned them in, and they downloaded, because I have an hour commute home, and I would ride with a friend home, and on the way home I would look at these, and I was able to go through them really fast on the iPad. And then on my iPhone there's the voice memo app. And I would do a voice memo, and then sit and you can email the voice memos, which is pretty cool. And so, boom, people started showing up in the morning, and all of a sudden there was a voice memo from me, from my iPhone, talking about the stuff that they didn't even know I had taken home, right? And so then our supervising technical director on Cars 2, he said, hey, I think I can write you an app to do this and be a little, even have better controls. So he created an app just for me called a review tool, where stills and video can be downloaded onto this from all the different departments on Cars 2. And then when I look through it, and when I'm ready to give a comment, there's a button that says, I said voice, and it starts recording my voice. And I'm wearing the little, the Apple sort of headphones with a microphone on it. And then when I'm done, I hit stop and hit email, and it's already addressed to the right person, and it's all. And I was able to go through stuff so fast that pretty soon they started getting me a driver. And they would use my hour drive to work and hour drive home as kind of meeting time to review stuff. And I was able to they estimate that 1 hour of a review time on the iPad was equivalent to about 3 hours at Pixar.
Oh, wow.
And so I was able to really, Cars 2 could not have been done without the iPad, and I was able to kind of do that. So I'm sitting here staring at the big iPad billboard out there, and it was just reminding me of that. And now every division I oversee has iPads that they load with stuff and they send home. And sometimes my bag is full of 6 iPads that I'm kind of looking through and stuff. In fact, I have an iPad at the hotel right now that they're saying, John, can you take a look at, sequences and stuff like that. So, but it really is great how, what's exciting about working at Pixar. Pixar's 25 years old this year. Steve Jobs, for those who don't know, Steve Jobs bought the Lucasfilm computer division in February 3rd of 1986. And it was when we formed the company Pixar. And Pixar initially was a technology company for the first kind of like 9 years of its life. And from 1986 until about 1991, there was only 4 of us in the computer animation research group. And I was the only traditionally trained animator working with computer animation, because I came from, my background is in working at Disney as an animator. And I got so excited about computer animation early on working at Disney, but they were not interested in pursuing that. And so it led me, Ed Catmull hired me up at the Lucasfilm computer division. And the Lucasfilm computer division, I have to just go back in history just a little bit, is a really remarkable place that Ed Catmull started. And it is, it was started, he joined George Lucas in 1979, formed the group, and George asked him to do 4 projects. And at the time, they were really kind of considered insane, But it's like George, wanted to have computers help him with editing. So at this group, they invented digital nonlinear editing, which now we know it as Final Cut Pro and all that kind of idea, the Avid and stuff like that. It didn't exist before this group. Digital sound editing, like Pro Tools, didn't exist before this group. They developed the Edit-Droid and the Sound-Droid, and then compositing of images digitally didn't exist. It was an optical printer, so they invented that. With a kind of alpha channel was invented by our group, and then 3D computer animation. So those 4 ideas from 79 to 86 were developed by this small group. And Steve Jobs bought this group. There was only 40 of us, and we formed the company Pixar. We had a Pixar image computer and all this software like RenderMan and stuff that was being developed. But in 1991, we made a deal with Disney and started developing the first computer animated feature film, which became Toy Story. It took 4 years to make, and that came out in November of 1995. And from that point on, we sort of shifted the whole company. Steve shifted the whole company to be just an animation studio, and we formed Pixar Animation Studio. Because
Toy Story, if you cast your minds back, was a massive gamble. Now the landscape has changed completely. But back then, Disney were behind it, gave it a release date, but it was basically the first of its kind. Did you have any inkling at all of what was going to come?
No, not really, because at the time we were just focused on telling a great story, and then we loved the technology, but we knew, because since Pixar invented a bunch of computer animation, we knew what you could and could not do with a medium, which was hard back then, because everybody thought, oh, computer animation, you could do anything. Well, you couldn't at that time. You had to know sort of what it could and could not do. And at that time, everything kind of had a look of, when it was rendered in 3D computer animation, it looked sort of like it was made of plastic. So let's make main characters that were made of plastic, toys. That's where Buzz Lightyear and Woody and all the gang, and it was perfect subject matter for the medium at that time. And so we stayed away from the humans because they were extremely hard to do. And they all, if you look back at Toy Story, it's the one thing that looks a little funky right now. But we obviously knew that at the time, and we staged everything so that they were just hands and feet, and you didn't see much of them, And so, but we focused on the toys, and we always knew that the technology was advancing so rapidly. That at one point in time or another, you'd look at Toy Story, the original one, and it would look really dated. But to me, it was not about the technology that was going to entertain audiences. It was going to be the story and the characters. And that's what that's what was taught to me by the great Disney animators that were my teachers and mentors at CalArts and then at Disney. It was always about the stories, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. It's the emotion of these stories. And so I really kind of helped everyone at Pixar and understand that it's not the technology that entertains people. It's the stories. And we were so focused on trying to tell a story. And it's interesting when we were developing Toy Story, and you think about 1991, The Little Mermaid had come out. I think Aladdin had come out, and so there was this. Disney was just at its pinnacle of making these amazing animated films, a resurgence of Disney animation. They were all being done kind of in this kind of a Broadway musical sort of form.
Yeah.
And we made a list, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, Joe Rampton, and myself, we made a list of what we didn't want to do with our first feature film. We didn't want it to be a musical. We didn't want it to have, a main character with comic sidekicks. We didn't want to have a love story and all this stuff. We wanted it to be something different. So we were searching around and we discovered the buddy picture as a genre. And we knew that really fits with what we want because buddy pictures by nature have tremendous character growth. And that's what we were looking for. Because to me, I always knew that the main character and how he changes and grows through a movie, that's where the heart of the film comes from. The heart of the film is the foundation of your story. You can't add that later. You have to build that from the beginning. And it's about the journey that your main character goes on. And so we kind of set that. We thought this would be great, set in the world where toys are alive, when people aren't around. And so having an old toy that's a child's favorite and a new toy comes in and becomes a new favorite, we thought could be a great form for the buddy picture where you have buddy picture. Typically you have two characters that are forced to be together that can't stand each other, and through this journey they grow as characters, and then they want to be together, and I think that's became kind of the form for Toy Story. And while we were making it, though, it's a very interesting thing that because at the time computer animation was doing mostly for TV, station IDs, just a handful of commercials, sports openings, things like that, and they always had kind of glitzy, metallic, chrome or glass kind of looks to them and glowy kind of things, and it had sort of a cold look to it.
Yeah.
And everybody looked at that and said, wait a minute, computer animation is not gonna, keep an audience, entertain an audience for a feature film. This is ridiculous. That's what everybody was saying. No one had faith in it, but we knew it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the story and the characters. And by choosing the subject matter of toys, it would lend itself to the medium in its kind of primitive form, like it was. And we stayed focused on the story, and when it came out, it caught pretty much everybody, Hollywood, everybody by surprise, and it became the #1 movie of the year. And then next thing you know, everybody's wanting to do computer animation because, of course, they thought it was the fact that it was computer animation is why it was a big hit, which Absolutely. We know, of course, is not the case. Yeah.
Do you keep an eye on the rival studios? I mean, now there's tons.
But see, this is interesting. Everybody says rival studios. To me, it's like I am so excited to be working in an industry that's really healthy. Because to me, competition to us is literally when you go to the movie theater, you look at the multiplex and see all the options you could go see. That's our competition. It's just what's in the theater at the time. If an animated film comes out, 6 months or 6 weeks before us, that's not competition. That's our friends. That's like I want everybody to go see animation. And I think right now it's such a fantastic. The industry is so fantastic when you think about all the stuff that's going on. Look at recently, great animated films like Coraline, the puppet animated film. Tim Burton's working on Frankenweenie right now, which is another puppet animated film. We've got, Aardman Animation here in the UK doing amazing clay animation. They're good friends. We've got a lot of good computer animation studios doing some really innovative and fantastic work. And at Disney we're doing both hand-drawn animation with both Princess and the Frog and Winnie the Pooh, and with computer animation like Tangled was. And I think that with all that's going on, and to me the goal is that each of these films be really good, and when they come out, everybody has a great time at them. So the next animated film comes out, everybody's going, oh, we had such a great time there. I want to see this one too.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I love about animation, more than, I mean, that's all I've ever wanted to do, and that's all I ever want to do is animation, because it's pure art. When you're looking up on the screen, you get nothing for free in these films. At Pixar, you get nothing for free. Everything you see up on, on the film here is being crafted by an artist.
Yeah.
Even though they're using computers are just a tool. And I think that's what's so exciting about animation. I'd much rather be, working in a healthy industry where lots of talented people around the world are being able to make a living doing what they love than being the only player in a dead industry.
Absolutely. Both Brad Bird and Andrew Stanton have gone live action. From what you just said there, it seems you have no plans to follow suit.
I have no plans. I am an animator through and through. That's all I ever want to do is animation. And I'm so proud to lead, all of our teams. I'm really excited for both Andrew and Brad. I mean, I think what they're going to be making is fantastic. And I think it's going to be very exciting to see these two brilliant directors who have basically their entire careers have been in animation, now working in live action. And I think it's going to surprise people how good these guys are. Because in animation, you have to plan things out in advance. There's no choice to do that. And I think these guys are, approaching that same philosophy with both John Carter and Mission Impossible 4. And I've seen bits of both of them, and it's pretty impressive what they're doing. I'm very proud of those guys.
Fantastic. Should we have another clip?
Yes, we need another clip.
And then we'll take some questions from you guys as well, so get thinking during this. If you want, this is the London scene. If you want
yes,
to talk about that.
One of the things that's very exciting about Cars 2 is how we...
That was it. Really quick.
It's very fast. I hope you enjoyed it. I love to bring, these cities that I love so much alive, and look at the car version of that. And this is a short clip of there's Lightning McQueen is invited to the World Grand Prix. It's the International Race of Champions. And the first race is in Tokyo. The second race is in Portocorsa, Italy, which is a town we made up on the Italian Riviera. It's kind of like mixing Portofino, Positano, Italy with Monte Carlo. It's kind of beautiful. And then the final race is set in London. And it's kind of the climax of the spy movie going on with this race and stuff. But we want to show you just a clip of the London part of the race. And it kind of shows you how we carified all of London, which is pretty fun.
Cool. Roll a clip.
Oh, bummer.
That's not bad.
Well, you gotta go see the movie now. I mean, there's so much more there. It's really great.
Car London looks pretty good, I have to say. So, how much research went into that?
Oh, yeah, a lot of research went into this film. We had our teams come over to to each of the places, and it's interesting. When you travel around the world, it's like the kind of pictures you take when you're on holiday. Our guys are taking pictures of curbs, of signals, of the way that lines are painted in the streets, and that kind of detail to get all the detail right. But it's really fun. And when you look closely at all the architecture that in each of these cities, especially London, you won't believe how much car detail is in there. You look at every building and it's made up of kind of car parts and stuff like that. And we've had a blast doing it because we love London so much. And I came to London for the very first time when I graduated Cal Arts in summer of 1979, and it really struck me as one of the most unique places on earth because of so much of it has to do with the vehicles. The double-decker buses and the London taxis, among all the other cars, are so unique here. And I always, when I started creating cars, I kept wanting to see those as characters, and that's one of the reasons why London was the first choice of locales that we wanted to take the characters to in this film.
It's a very Brit-centric cast as well. You have Sir Michael Caine, Emily Mortimer, Jason Isaacs, Eddie Izzard. It's not bad.
Yeah, and we had all the spy cars are kind of British spy cars, and it's really fun. And they have. We have old school and new school spy cars with, Finn McMissile with Sir Michael Caine doing the voice, and then Holly Shiftwell is very high-tech spy car, and she's voiced by Emily Mortimer, and she's fantastic.
It's a great Bond name. Holly Shift.
Holly Shift well. Yeah.
It's not bad. I'm going to throw it open to you guys now. If you have any questions at all with John, there will be floating microphones coming around. There's a gentleman right there. So put your hands up, and I'll get around you as soon as I can. First people, sorry, we're over there. Keep your hands up if you can. There's 2 roving microphones. Brilliant. Yeah. There's a guy, second row. Yeah. Check shirt. Brilliant. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi there.
What was the mood like in Pixar when you heard that Disney had closed their drawn animation wing, and how did you start it up again?
Well, when we were a separate company, Pixar was a separate company. We just had a distribution deal with Disney, and we worked kind of closely with them, on our films, and then they marketed and distributed our films. So we really didn't have any connection too much to the animation department down there. And when Disney decided that they felt like audiences were not interested in looking at hand-drawn animation anymore, only computer animation, as did other studios. Basically every other studio made that decision. But when Disney did, it was like, I didn't get it. It's like 2 studios. One uses camera A and one uses camera B. The studio with camera A makes hit after hit after hit. The studio with camera B makes flop after flop after flop. And they go, oh, we get it. We're using the wrong camera. We want to use that camera. And it's just like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And so so as soon as right when Ed Catmull and I stepped in and I became Chief Creative Officer of Disney Animation, and Ed became President, we said we want to bring back hand-drawn animation. And we did, and I'm very proud of it because it's just an exquisite art form. And in the same way that you look at what's going on in animation right now, with the great puppet animation, both Tim Burton and Henry Selick doing that, clay animation with Aardman, amazing hand-drawn animation from Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, as well as Disney, and computer animation being done by a lot of great companies, but in wide variety of styles and stuff. I think it's so healthy to have these films being made in all these different techniques. And when it's made by someone who's just passionate about that technique, they know what subject matter you should be doing with each of those. They know the story that you can come from and then the style of it because they love it so much. And I think that's what's so exciting about what's going on in animation now. And I'm really, really proud of bringing back hand-drawn animation. And we just and it's the key is in choosing the right stories to be told, in those techniques. So, and it was great. As soon as we said we were doing it again, it's like, all these artists came back to the studio, brilliant artists, and we really, and they've just, and also they've really come in there and made even the computer animation at the Disney Animation Studio even that much better. If you look at the quality of animation that was Entangled, it's just out of this world, and they had a tremendous impact from Glenn Keane, sitting there and drawing, over all of the computer animation and animation dailies, and helping each animator really with the posing and all the stuff that's going on. So it's really at Disney, the merging of hand-drawn animation, computer animation is happening in a very interesting way.
There's a lady here in the front row who's had her hand aloft for the last 5 minutes, I think, so we'll come to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask them, because I'm very passionate about animation and Pixar and Disney. If you wanted to do a project with your company, or how could you contact you, like with email, to get onto someone there to work with them or anything from England?
I hate to say it, but unfortunately we don't take outside ideas. I'm so sorry. I know, and thank you for your passion for it, but it's a filmmaker-driven studio, and all the ideas come from internal in the filmmakers, and so I'm so sorry, but we don't really take outside pitches. But sorry about that.
Okay, sorry.
But there's a lot of, you can turn around and buy some computer animation tools and get your friends and do it yourself. You know, that's what's so awesome about right now. I mean, back when I got started in computer animation, all of the tools were in the hands of, you know, very expensive computers at universities or a few computer animation companies. And, you know, right now in this store, you could buy a whole film studio. And that's what's remarkable. I recommend Apple computers.
Okay, I second that. Right at the back, there's a lady with her hand up here. Yeah, keep your hand up.
Hello. I just thanks for coming. It's really nice. It's not often we have that, so it's really cool. I just wanted to know if you could talk a bit. I know it's a next project, but I've seen the trailer for Brave.
Oh yeah.
And it looks absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to know if you could talk a bit about the process for that film, and also
Sure.
it's the first time you have a female hero as a main character in Pixar. So if you don't mind talking about it a bit, that'd be brilliant.
That's great. Our next movie that's coming out next summer is called Brave. It's set in. It's got a lot of firsts for Pixar. One of the things I love about working at Pixar is we're always challenging ourselves to do something we don't know how to do, and we're challenging ourselves to really push ourselves storytelling wise, which leads to pushing ourselves technology wise. All technical development at Pixar is driven by the needs of the story that we're developing. So Brave is the first kind of real period film for Pixar. It is set in medieval Scotland. And one of the challenges about doing a film set in a real period film is it has tremendous technical challenges because the computer animation, for those who have ever worked in it, it loves to make things absolutely perfect, geometrically perfect. And that's what it likes to do the most. Anything with a sense of history to it, age, whatever, is so hard to do. And so, I mean, everything in this story, every rock, every tree, the moss, the castles, the people, they all have a sense of history to it. So it's a tremendous amount of technical development and complexity involved in that. And I think the huge advances that we made in Cars 2, as far as the level of complexity of this film, Cars 2 is like 10 times more complex than any Pixar film. It's really, working its way into Brave to be able to do this kind of. And we could not do Brave even like 2 or 3 years ago. The level of complexity of this film. It's also a first for Pixar because it's the first fairy tale for Pixar. Pixar's films have always been a little bit more on the contemporary side or whatever, and with not a whole lot of magic in them. And this is really great because it's fairy tale Pixar style, which is very different than what we've seen, but still has, it has like these great spells and magic and sorcery and all this stuff that's really clever and unique. And so it's taking kind of a Pixar twist on the fairy tale. And it's also, as you said, which we're very excited about, it's Pixar's first female lead character, which is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. And in all of Pixar films, we have very strong female characters, but this is the first time we've really had a lead character like that. Her name is Merida. It's Princess Merida, but she's not your typical Disney princess where she's kind of waiting around for her prince to show up. She's really, as we say, a kick-ass princess. So we're very excited about this, and it's being directed by Mark Andrews, who's got some Scottish heritage, and it's really a very unique film for Pixar, a very unique film kind of in computer animation. We're so excited about it. So that'll be next summer. And then after that, we have, for those who remember Monsters Incorporated with the Sully and Mike, we have a sequel to them, but it's not really a sequel. It's very different from any of the other Pixar sequels. This is actually a prequel. It's how Sully and Mike met and became friends, and they met at college. So it's called Monsters University, and it's a college movie in the monster world. So it's really really hilarious. It's really funny, and when they first met, they hated each other, and so it's pretty fun.
Fantastic. Many people on the Empire Twitter feed today said, "Ask him about Toy Story 4." So what's the latest?
Well, I'm really excited about Cars 2. And I hope you all go see it. I'm very proud of it.
Fair enough. But there's a Toy Story 3.5 attached to this one.
Yeah, one of the things we do love to do is to kind of keep the characters alive by doing short films. And when you go see Cars 2, you will see what we call a Toy Story tune. It's called Hawaiian Vacation. It is hilarious. You've seen it, right?
Yeah,
it's hilarious. And so it's the middle of winter. Bonnie is about to go on a winter break to a Hawaiian vacation. And Ken and Barbie stow away in her backpack and think they're going all the way to Hawaii, and they end up just in Bonnie's room. So it's pretty hilarious. So
exclusive Toy Story 4 scoop. Okay, so we have a gentleman right here, third row. Keep your hand up so they see. Yeah, great, thanks.
Hi there. In Toy Story 3, the final sequence, there was a real sort of emotional epiphany, a real wallop to the end. Did you anticipate the reaction that the audiences were going to have to that?
Oh, yeah. The reason is when Andrew Stanton, we in Toy Story 3, we went off to this cabin out on the Pacific coast near Pixar, in this bay called Tamales Bay, and it was the same cabin that we rented when we hammered out the story for Toy Story. So we thought it'd be good luck, and it was the same people. We went out there to kind of plan out what we wanted to do for Toy Story 3. We had an idea that had been floating around since the end of Toy Story 2 that we had kind of developed, and so we started with that and kind of developing the idea. So 2 days we spent kind of working on this, and then we came back, and Andrew Stanton took took the idea that we outlined that 2-day brainstorming meeting, and he kind of worked on a treatment. And I'll never forget the meeting. We were sitting in a conference room at Pixar, and the same group got together, small group, and Andrew proceeded to read his treatment to us. And when we got to the end of the treatment in that kind of same scene, I was just crying. It was so emotional for me because of what these characters have meant to me. These characters have meant to all of us, because it kind of almost represents Pixar in a way, Buzz and Woody. And to have Andy handing each of these characters over to Bonnie and kind of giving them to her, and it was just so kind of emotional for us, and that treatment just kind of tore me up. And each of the times when we looked at the story reel, I mean, I would just get weepy-eyed again. And so I knew that we had something really strong there, and it was just, we just kept crafting it and making sure that each stage that we kept the emotion, and we really worked on it to make sure, with the music with Randy Newman, Lee Unkrich directing it, just really kind of crafted it, and we went back and forth, and a few times I wasn't quite as emotional, and we adjusted it some more, and so we really kind of worked on it. It's kind of, it reminds me a little bit of when Bob Peterson and Pete Docter read the treatment to us in the early stages of Up, about the first 10 minutes there, oh my God, that ripped us up too, And that was a pretty amazing tour de force of filmmaking too, is that first 10 minutes, which is completely just with music, and so, but that's Pixar. That's what we love to do, is find those things. And, we make movies that we like to watch, we like to be moved, in films. And so, and then we know that if it's moving us, it'll move the audience. And so we really trust our instinct with this kind of thing. And, it's exciting working at Pixar, because one of the things that, and I have to credit Steve Jobs for this, is that Pixar were willing to risk things. We're willing to do things that most people would say, no one's going to go see a movie about a 72-year-old guy tying a whole bunch of balloons to his house and floating in South America with like a Boy Scout. It's like, what's that about? And he meets a big bird and stuff like that. And it's like, but it's like we believe in this because we know that it could be great. Or a rat that wants to be the chef a chef in the finest restaurant in Paris, or on and on. I mean, Wall-E, a love story about two robots that don't talk, and it's just on and on. We love that, and I think that what's so exciting about Pixar is that, It's not in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. It's not in that industry town. We're up where in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's something really unique about the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a culture of entrepreneurism up there. I mean, Silicon Valley is there, Stanford, Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley is there. There's so much research going on. It's not an industry town. There's medical research going on, innovative medical. Of course, the computer industry, on and on and on. The wine industry is up there, and it's just there's sort of. It's funny, when I was at Disney early in my career. I was so excited about computer animation. I kept being told back then, it was like a totally different kind of leadership than now. They kept telling, that's not the way we do things. It was like the answer was no. Whenever I asked for something, it was no. But when I got up to work with Ed Catmull in the Silicon Valley, influence to Pixar and Lucasfilm and all that was going on, it was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try. And what's interesting about Ed Catmull leading our group is that Ed was there when the computers first started making pictures. Computer animation, don't forget, is an art form that grew out of a science. And in science, there's a culture of experimentation. And when you think about any kind of scientific world where really experimentation is happening, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, the experiments fail. But that's part of it. You learn from those failures and you move on. And that is the culture of Pixar. It's like trying things. And failure is expected. It's okay. Andrew Stanton coined the phrase, it's like, be wrong as fast as you can. Just try something. And you're going to be wrong. The first time you put a story up on Reels, the first time you try something, the first time, whatever, don't worry about it, And it's so interesting because Hollywood is kind of the opposite. Everybody is in fear of losing their job, it seems like, at every other studio. The way I describe it is, imagine a trapeze artist in a circus. He's way up high on the thing. He's got a trapeze in hand. He's looking across at the guy who's going to catch him. He's going to break a record. He's going to do more somersaults in the air than any human in history. It's going to be great. Well, if it was Hollywood, not only there would be no net, there would be poison spikes down below. So it's like, is anybody going to even try it? No. But at Pixar, not only is there a net, but there's big fluffy down comforters and pillows and beanbags and the whole shebang. And it's like, so therefore everybody's trying it, And then when someone hits it, everybody, yeah, and then they go on to the next record. And that's what the feeling is like. And that's what sort of, you just feel that up there. I mean, it's the culture of Steve Jobs. It's the culture of Ed Catmull. It's the culture of Pixar. But everybody knows that all technical development is in the service of the stories because, the audience doesn't care about the technology. It doesn't care about the tools you made a film with. You want to be entertained. And it's like you want to be, and we always think, I always feel like Hollywood kind of thinks the audience is dumber than it really is. They kind of aim down to the audience, and we're the opposite. We think that the audience is very smart, especially kids in the audience, and we always aim high, and we always try to make very smart stories, very smart characters, and it's funny how we really care about each other at Pixar, and we really have fun and love each other, and I don't know whether it's just Pixar or it's Bay Area or something. It's not cynical up there. Where LA is very cynical, and I think that's why there's a quality to the Pixar characters and the stories and things like that we don't really have any cynical characters. They kind of care about each other, but they're all flawed. I mean, we all are flawed. You got to have flawed characters, and that's what makes an interesting story. You inherently like the characters, but you go, Woody, don't knock Buzz out the window. And it's like they make wrong choices, but you understand you would probably make those same choices. That's what we always feel like. We want to get the audience into that place. But I think it's really a product of of us as a group of artists working together in the product of kind of the culture that we've created of being really, really creative.
How hard has it been to maintain that culture, given Pixar's immense success over the years? It must be easy to fall into, well, we did do it that way for Toy Story, so let's keep on doing it this way.
Well, it comes down from the top, and Ed and I are adamant about the thing we fear the most at Pixar is becoming complacent, thinking we know what we're doing. Every single Pixar film has been really hard to make. And people don't believe me in this, but every Pixar film at one time or another during the creation of the story, it was the worst motion picture ever made. Just dreadful. Just awful, wasn't working. But we never gave up on the movie because we wouldn't start the film unless we felt like it had tremendous potential, and we believed in ourselves, we believed in the process, and we just work our way through it. A few times we've had to make changes with directors or writers or creative people and something like that when things aren't gelling, but we believe in the process so much and believe in the stories, and we just won't let a movie go out that's not great. Because quality is the best business plan. And Steve's said to me as we were as I was working on Toy Story, he thought we were talking one day, and he said, with at Apple when we make our computers, it's like, what's the lifespan of them? He said probably 3 years. 5 years they're a doorstop, because the new technology has come on and it's just obsolete. He said, John, if you do your job right, these films can last forever. And think about it. Think of another movie that was released in 1938 that's watched today or will be watched 10 years from now as much as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I would argue even think of another movie from 1995 that's watched as much as Toy Story today. And I think it's the quality of the storytelling. That it is so important. It makes these, and it's like I've studied so much the films of Walt Disney. And when you watch a film like Bambi, the gorgeous restored version, you watch it up on a big screen, and that thing entertains you as much today as it did when it was made. There's nothing dated about that film. Or Dumbo, which is my favorite movie of all time, or Pinocchio, or Cinderella, or these films. They're so good. And they're timeless. They're truly timeless. And that's one of the things that I'm so excited about animation. Animation, you have the opportunity to make things that are truly timeless, But it's just really hard work making these films, really hard work. And it goes back to, the culture of Pixar. You were asking how it's changed. And one of the things that we were concerned about when Disney bought Pixar, probably 3/4 of the negotiation, Steve Jobs versus with Disney, was protecting the Pixar culture. It was described by one of the guys that works with us as lightning in a bottle. It's just there's something magical about this culture, and everybody at Pixar is so protective of it. And trust me, it's like the same way that people give notes on all of our films to ourselves. When they feel like that something's happening at the company that isn't good for Pixar, we hear about it. Ed Kaplan and I, we hear about it. And we listen to the people because it's really important. You go to anybody at Pixar, all 1,200 of them, you ask them, what's the most important thing to you? They'll say Pixar. What's the second most important thing? The movie that they're working on. And down the list is somewhere is themselves. Right. And it's so different than any other studio in Hollywood.
Fantastic. There's a gentleman right at the back He's got his hand up right at the very back, I'm afraid. Sorry. Keep your hand up so they can see you. Thank you. And there we go.
Cheers. Hiya. First of all, John, I'd like to thank you not thank you, congratulate you on a great film. We came to the BFI yesterday, me and my partner, and we saw Cars 2. It is brilliant. It's one of the best ones I've seen.
Thank you very much. You hear that, everybody? It wasn't paid.
First, a couple of questions. Basically, it was my partner's question yesterday. It was, how did the concept of the Easter eggs come about in the films?
Oh, that's great.
And how is it decided what actually goes into the film? And my last one is a bit cheeky. Would you mind signing her Cars 2 Art Disney book for her?
The cheeky one will... We'll have to see about that
Yeah.
because I think there's a lot of people want things sided, and I'm already probably late to some place. We've got a very tight schedule, but the okay. So the Easter eggs. The Easter eggs, if you don't know about it, are in jokes that we put in our movies. Takes 4 years to make our films. Our people are very clever and funny, and funny stuff finds their way into our movies, and we kind of love that. The way it started kind of is that it started with Toy Story. Since it was our first film, we actually put homages to some of our favorite films. You know, there's kind of a homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark with the giant globe rolling towards Buzz. In Toy Story 2, there's an homage to Jurassic Park with Rex, following the little car. And there's all sorts of, all through it, there's really fun stuff. And so then as it went on, we started putting kind of references to our own kind of movies all through it. And I think where it took in Monsters Incorporated, at the end, if you remember, when they finally get Boo, the little girl, into her own room, which is a big goal that they've had for the movie, and she's so excited to show Sully her toys. And so the first thing she holds up is a Jessie doll, right? And she shows it to him. And the next toy that she shows is a little orange fish with white stripes. And at the time, everybody thought, oh, it's just a little orange fish with white stripes. No one realized it was Nemo, the character for our next movie that hadn't come out yet. And so we started doing that. We started putting kind of references to movies Pixar movies that haven't come out yet. If you remember in Ratatouille, when Remy is going up between the walls, kind of going up from the sewers, going up. It's a really awesome sequence that Brad did going up. And he comes out, and there's this shadow of a dog barking, ruff, 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 ruff. Well, that's Doug from the movie Up, is in there. And that's like, I don't know, it's, the 2 movies away, And so we enjoy doing that. And I'll tell you that in Cars 2, there's a reference to our next movie, Brave. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You'll have to find it. It's really clever. And then there's one object. Some of you may know this, but there's one object that has been in every Pixar film. Of course, John Lasseter does a voice in every Pixar film, but there's one object that's seen. Anybody knows what it is? What is it? A113. That's a good one, but no, that's not it. The Luxo Junior Ball? No, that's not it. That's a good one, too. Anybody?
Over here, maybe?
The Pizza Planet truck from Toy Story. The Pizza Planet truck is in every Pixar film. How we're going to get it in medieval Scotland in Brave, I have no idea, but trust me, we'll figure out a way. But it's in Cars 2 as a character in 2 places. 2 different places in the film, but that's all I'm going to tell you as well. But we love that. And also, if you see, there's references to people's names as far as adverts. And so I didn't know about it, but they surprised me with putting Lasseter, spelled the proper British way, Tyre,
very good,
into the film, as you see. So it's really fun. But we love that. And also, it's like in our DVDs and stuff, we've been big fans of all the extras. One of the things, the philosophy I have at Pixar, being Chief Creative Officer, is I love to over-deliver in everything that we do. And that's one of the exciting things about, going to a Pixar feature film. We don't even advertise it. You get a Pixar short film with every movie. The DVDs are loaded with extras that we get that because we were big fans of Laserdiscs back in the early days, with the Criterion editions of great movies and commentaries and stuff like that. So we have a real culture of saving everything, all the mistakes, and trying to put it in there as features. And a lot of the Easter eggs, come from that as well.
Fantastic. So that's your homework for this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Go and spot those Easter eggs. I think this is the last question from this gentleman right down here in the front row. Oh, and the little boy down there, of course.
Yeah, we got to answer.
Yeah, we'll get
Hi, thanks for
and this
coming
little boy's asking a question.
And go.
You mentioned about the technology being not quite there yet when you first started with Toy Story and things like that. over all the films that you've done so far, what's been the biggest challenge in terms of the character or an object that you've tried to render or create or something like that? And also, what inspires you for the stories as well?
Sort of one of the things that I think in the technological development and stuff, there's a simple way to look at computer animation. The more organic something is in the way it looks or moves, the harder it is to do with a computer. The more geometric something is, or perfect, is easier to do. And so I think one of the things that's always kind of the hardest to do is the human characters. And one of the things that makes it hard is that we as an audience, we look at humans every day in the mirror, our families, our friends, all that stuff. And so if you don't get it right, it takes you out of the movie. At Pixar, we don't try to make things real or realistic. We like to make things believable, because there's something called photorealism in computer animation, where you can make something look absolutely real. And there's a whole industry with special effects that's what they do. What we do is like to take the tools that make things photorealistic and take a step back from reality and produce something the audience knows does not exist from beginning to end. It's an animated film, it doesn't exist. But then it's really fun to make things look, I feel like I can touch it, but I know this isn't real, but boy, it sure looks real. And that's part of, I think, one of the charm from the beginnings that we've had, even with the short films like Luxo Jr., is having this sense like, wow, there's something sort of real about this, but I know it doesn't exist. And it has this kind of part of the entertainment value, I think, of Pixar films. And I've always loved doing that. I've loved pushing that sort of the believability, I like to say, of that. But I would say the human characters is the hard thing. And so Brave is pushing it to new levels, because there's a couple of things that are very challenging. If you see the trailer, when you go see the movies, Cars 2, that we have the teaser trailer for Brave there, and it's the main character, Merida, has this beautiful red curly hair, the big kind of mane of this great hair, and that is just crazy hard to do. The other thing is clothing. And I think we've had a lot of clothing in the past, like with Ratatouille, and it kind of started with Jerry's Game. Remember that great short where the old man's playing himself in chess? That was our first kind of real attempt at a convincing, believable human character. And and so in Brave, the clothing is just kind of cold, and it's layers upon layers of clothing, which is something we've never been able to do. And also studying, it's interesting, we don't think about it, but you can look and see like a heavy wool skirt versus a very light silk skirt, or something satin or things like that. You just know right away with the way it moves and the hangs and all like that. And that is so hard to do with the simulation and stuff. And so we're learning to do layers and all these different fabrics and stuff, along with the hair and the muscle work. We've done really innovative work, because there's a really amazing bear in Brave that is got this unbelievable muscle work on it, and also the horses and stuff. It's really kind of innovative, the work that's being done there. So that's kind of where we're right now, where the big challenges are in what we're developing. And what was the last part of your question? Oh, and what do I get my inspirations from? Life itself. I think where we get our inspirations from, being a filmmaker-driven studio, I like to take a look at, having the directors and the kind of creative teams come up with the ideas, because inevitably they're drawing it from their own experiences. There's something that happened. For me, Cars was inspired from my father, who was a parts manager, Chevy dealership, and wrapped into kind of this motorhome trip I took with my family. Andrew Stanton was inspired on Finding Nemo with a simple, where he was walking his son to his park, and he was so scared about his son getting on, he just told him, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And he realized he was so scared that his son might get hurt that he was preventing him from living, and it was, little things like that come from it. I think Pete Docter was inspired by his grandparents for Up, and it's interesting. It's like it's a very special kind of things, and that's what makes our movies. I think they touch people because they're based upon these emotions that we really have. It's not just sort of an executive getting a pitch from some writer, and then it's handed down to different writers, and next thing you know, it's assigned to a director. It's like these things come from people's hearts, and that's what now both Disney Animation and Pixar is filmmaker-driven studios, so that we can get the inspiration. But then from then on, once we start a project, I believe in research. It's something that is really that I'm adamant about. That every project is research, because you never know where the great ideas are going to come from once you start down a path. And from universities to professors to trips, to trying to get experts, to experiences yourself. Like, I made sure that all the creative team on Finding Nemo became certified scuba divers, because I'm a certified scuba diver. And I said, you've got to get underwater and see it yourself, to make sure that you're doing it right, And we've taken race driving classes for cars. We've sent all our animators out to the racetrack to get hot laps with race drivers to get the feeling of what it's like. We've in Brave, our team has gone a few times to Scotland to really study the people, and talk to people and all like that. But also, visit all the different kind of sites to make sure it feels authentic. Because it's really important for us that each of our subject matter of our films, we want people who know that subject matter to look at it and go, they did their homework. I mean, how many of you have seen a movie on, a subject matter you love, football or fishing or you name it, and it's like, oh, it's Hollywood, we can do whatever we want. And they don't get the details right. You don't get the terminology right. You don't get the way the things move right and all like that. And right away, you lose credibility. And we never want to lose credibility. And so if we feel like if we can, like Cars was considered by a number of car magazines as the best movie about cars ever in history, because we got the details right. And if we can get the professionals who work in the automobile industry or the racing industry to look at it and go, wow, they got it right, then the rest of the audience will know that it feels authentic, feels real, and it feels believable. So
fantastic. Now we have time for the last question. This young man here in front row. Thank you.
Hello, John.
Hello.
I love cars.
Really?
Motor Speedway of the South was released after the first Cars film. There are only 1,000 sets in the world. I am lucky to have one, and my favourite car is Apple.
Yeah.
Do you have the Motor Speedway of the South set?
Yes. Okay. So, what he's talking about is we did a special collector edition of this Motor Speedway of the South set, where all of the Piston Cup racers, including Lightning McQueen, are in this set. And it's really cool, right? Isn't it really cool? It's like there's a bank turn, right, and all that, and all the cars, and it's the only place that you can get the Apple car. It was my little gift to Steve, right, of printing out or making one of the sponsors of one of the Piston Cup cars as being an Apple car. Now, typically NASCARs are really tacky, with just loaded with stickers and all that stuff. And so when we did the Apple car, it's white with a beautiful gray Apple logo on it, and all the everything's lined up like Johnny Ive would do, just like perfectly down there. And we originally had the number on the side of the Apple car was G5, right back when the G5 chip was in the things. And so I called Steve and I said, hey, we're going to do this. Is that okay? There was a long pause on the other end of the phone. He said, and this was long before they announced they were moving away from Motorola chips to Intel chips. And he kind of, can you give it a different number? Yeah, I guess I can. And so we gave it 84 for 1984 when the Mac came out and stuff like that. So I have no idea why he wanted it. But then in a little while before Cars came out, they announced they were going over to Intel chips, and I got it. So he didn't want to go backwards. But yes, I am lucky. I have one of the Motor Speedway of the South sets myself. I'm very proud of it. It's right in my office and stuff, and I'm so glad, because isn't the Apple car cool? It's very rare. It's very collectible and stuff. How did you get it? Did you get it from online or something, or did you? Oh, Christmas. Someone really loves you. You know how hard it was to get that? Do you realize? Santa Claus really loves you. Santa was online, like as soon as it was released, going bye, 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 hoping it would click in there. Because the thing, it was released on a collector set, a collector website for Mattel, and I think it sold out within 5 minutes or something like that. It was like super fast. So I keep telling them, I mean, there's a lot of collectors out there of all these cars. I have to say that the whole die-cast thing is something I really love, because I was the perfect age in the late 60s when Hot Wheels came out, Mattel's Hot Wheels, and I've just been a fan of that. And so when we started thinking about doing products for cars, I started working with Disney Consumer Products, and we naturally went to Mattel because we wanted to get them really really well made. I wanted that die cast, that heavy feel. But I really thought that this could be different than Hot Wheels cars, because they're characters. I said this is going to be more like a Hot Wheels car combined with an action figure. And so I worked with them. I said, let's make them slightly bigger. So the die cast for cars is 1/55 scale, where Hot Wheels is about 1/64 scale. So it's a little bit bigger. I thought you could see the expressions better. And what's interesting is that originally cars, early on, we had a release date that was going to be in November, because traditionally all Pixar films were kind of released in November. And then some point in time it shifted to summer, which was, for in the United States. And so Mattel was like, oh, we don't sell as many toys in the summertime. So they actually reduced the number of cars they were making. And I said, are you guys crazy? And so as soon as the die-cast cars kind of hit the shelf about 2 weeks before cars came out, they were sold out like that. And it's like everybody was clamoring, every store was clamoring to try to get more. And I called the head of Mattel. Hey, so can we make more cars now? And I don't know, they're 100 million or something like that, die-cast. And so then we started, because I always had, I don't know if any of you guys collected the Star Wars figures from, kind of the early, and how, remember how cool it was? They even had figures for like a guy that was in one scene, right? And so I just, that's what the vision I had of just like, let's do every car, that you see in the movie, even if it's just one shot, let's have that car as a diecast. So he came up with names for every single guy, and in a little bio for each one, and it's like hilarious, silly bios for each of these cars. But it's like 256 or something like that cars from the first movie. Then we have the Mater's Tall Tales. Do you watch Mater's Tall Tales? Yeah, aren't they awesome? Yeah. And then do you have any of those die cast? Yeah, they're really funny. And then of course with the cars too, there's a lot of good ones coming out. So they'll go out for a few years, I think.
Fantastic.
So,
and
anyway.
do you play with them, or do you keep them in the box?
Yeah, keep them in the box.
Yeah, smart.
No, see what you need to do. You need to ask Santa for 2. One you keep in the package, and the other one you take out and play with. That's what I do. I ask Santa for that. So it's really important to have 2. Okay. So thanks for the question. That's really cool that you have that. That's very special.
Good last question, I thought. And on that bombshell, we will end.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to the Apple Store. Don't you think this is great? Thank you for having us.
Indeed. 20 seconds. Thank you.
Creative teams heading up each project. When I direct a film, it's more of like I'm now kind of the storyteller and the guy that's kind of creating the film, working in collaboration with my team, and then I get to work with the individual artists at Pixar, which I think is one of the things I really enjoy doing. So, and I think it's great to have a sort of myself as kind of the creative head of the studio actually be a film director as well.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of, so I know what they're going through, and I'm able to help the young directors, the first-time directors, and help mentor them.
It's basically the coolest job ever, essentially. If you want to, you don't have to be shy. Yeah, it's fine.
I do have the coolest job ever. It's a lot of work. What's interesting though is that I have 5 sons, and I've told each of them, I said, I want you to choose something that you really, really love to do as a job, and then you'll never work a day in your life. And they've seen how hard it is that I work, but I just love every day, and I don't even think of it as a job. It's just so much fun.
How do you find time to direct a film?
Well, that was a big challenge, and on Cars 2, given that it's the first movie I've directed while I've been sort of in my new role, overseeing all the studios, I really I've delegated a lot, because all the people that I've worked with on many of the films, the kind of leadership, and so I've really I stayed focused on what I knew was important, and it's developing the story, and then kind of crafting the filmmaking side of it, the layout and working in editorial to get it the story reels edited right, and really craft the film, and then working with all the other departments as much as I could, and then I was able to delegate with that. But I also that something kind of neat happened while I was working on Cars 2. The iPad came out. Yeah, now you have to understand, Steve Jobs is one of my best friends, and he was CEO of Pixar for 20-something years, and founded Pixar and was owner of Pixar, and kind of helped make me the leader I am. He's just an amazing guy, but I am a big technology geek, and I get to go to work with Dad a couple times a year, meaning I get to go down and hang out with Steve at Apple and get to see all the advanced stuff. So when the iPad was seen to be about the cruising and the neon lights turning on, and so the spy movie got cut, but I never really forgot about it. So traveling around the world, and I thought spy movies, like, they kind of go around the world, and so that's where it came. And I also had been to my first Formula One race, which I'm crazy about Formula One now.
Okay.
And I really wanted Lightning McQueen to race against all these other cool race cars from around the world.
Oh, fantastic.
And they do more kind of European style racing, and so all that kind of came together, and we really set out to have fun with this film, and make a really very different type of film.
As you traveled around the world, were you surprised in a way by the enduring impact of Cars? I mean, it really caught on in a big way. I mean, obviously it's sold lots of merchandise, lots of DVD units over the years.
It's interesting how Cars, when it first came out, it did quite well around the world. Not as well as some of our other films, but unlike any film in cinema history, it's gotten more popular as time has gone on. I mean, people have discovered it and keep discovering it, and the products keep selling, and it's pretty staggering. I mean, not that I make movies. To me, I make movies to really entertain audiences, and I love quality is the best business plan. We always strive to make the best stories in all of our stories. And also, if a product is being made based upon our characters, I really want the products to be as high quality as possible. And I'm a big kid. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing a kind of Cars 2 Hawaiian shirt here, and I love, the toys and the products, but I want them to be really high quality. Well, the toys took off, and they kept going up, as far as the amount they were being sold. And so since the first movie has come out based on one movie, they told me that $10 billion worth of products have been sold.
Wow. That's not
after
bad.
one movie.
That helps pay for a shirt.
Yeah, pays for the shirt. And but anyway, it's been very exciting to see all over the world how it's been caught on. But it's really exciting, because I think to me my what I enjoy the most is when I'm out in the world and I see sort of a family or a kid or something like that. It's like holding a character of ours, and they don't know who I am. It doesn't matter, but it's like that character really means something to them in order to have that. Absolutely. And that's how I always view the products that we make.
Absolutely. Making this movie, directing films, is no longer your day job. For the people here, can you tell them exactly what your day job involves?
About 5 years ago, Disney bought Pixar, and I was made by Steve Jobs and Bob Iger. I was made Chief Creative Officer of course, Pixar Animation Studios, which I was, but then the Walt Disney Animation Studios, Disney Toon Studios, and I'm principal creative advisor for Walt Disney Imagineering. And so with that comes a responsibility of kind of overseeing everything creative that goes on at each of those studios. And so I tend to work with the directors. Each of those studios is what I call a filmmaker-driven studio. It's the way Pixar is, and we converted Disney over to that. And what that means is all the ideas of the stories come from the directors, come from, they kind of own the stories and the films. And it was very different than the rest of Hollywood. We surround then we surround all the directors with what we call the creative brain trust or the creative story trust, and that is all the other directors and key story people. And each of the directors are responsible for showing their movies internally to the studio every 3 to 4 months. And then all of us get together and we then look at it and then give notes to the directors for to try to make their movies the best they could be. And each of these films takes about 4 years to make.
Okay.
And so I'm working with the creative teams for all the movies and overseeing all the projects. And also at Imagineering, I'm helping design the theme parks and theme parks attractions based upon our characters. And in Disneyland Paris, the new Toy Story Playland that kind of opened up, which is a little mini land with our characters. And in California, we're doing a whole Cars land, which is pretty amazing. And that's really fun. That's like dessert, I don't call that work. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And but in my chief creative position, I'm kind of working with
Bit of a cliffhanger there.
I know it's just a clip, but I always I want to see the rest of it. Sorry.
But you can go in 1,000 different directions when you're making a film like this.
Yeah.
And, obviously, you went with spy movies, but did you go through any other iterations of this movie before you settled on this?
It's interesting how this idea evolved, because when I was after Cars was finished. It's a very Americana story about Lightning McQueen being stuck on old Route 66 and learning that the journey in life is a reward. It's something that I kind of experienced myself after directing, through the 1990s. I directed the first 3 Pixar films, and I had 4 of my 5 children during that time, and my wife said, you better be careful. One day you're going to wake up and your kids will have gone to college and you will have missed it. And so we took the summer of 2000 off and got a motorhome and traveled all over the United States without no plan. And I really learned that the journey in life is a reward that weekend. And so I really wanted to create a film like that. So that's what Cars was about. And after we finished it and I traveled around the world doing publicity for Cars, I had Cars as characters kind of on the brain in my mind, and as I traveled around the world, I kept looking at Tokyo and London and Italy and Paris, and from a point of view of Cars being alive, and I thought, oh, this could be really fun. And I thought, the first movie was very Americana. I thought that the next one would be fun to take these characters and go around the world. The spy idea came from actually a scene that we were developing in the first movie, Cars. Lightning McQueen is taking Sally on a first date, and originally, because when I grew up in high school, dates were you took girls to the movie theater.
Yeah.
So the lights were dim and you could make out, and no one would pay attention to you. But and so I thought, well, a movie. A car going to the movies would be a drive-in movie theater, and so we needed a movie playing on the screen, and that's where my love of spy movies came out, and that's where we first created Finn McMissile. Well, the development of the story shifted the location of that scene.
Now, please welcome to the stage a man who has shaped animation of the last quarter of a century, the director of Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Cars, Cars 2, the chief creative officer of Disney and Pixar, the great John Lasseter.
Wow, great. How are you?
Have a seat.
Hi, everybody.
It's all for you, John. There's a young chap down there in a pit lane outfit, which
that's awesome.
Which is pretty cool. John, I think I want to start off with how different this film is from the first movie. I think we saw it there in the trailer, but we have a clip that sets it up. It's the opening of the film, if you want to set it up.
When we at Pixar, when we always do a sequel for a film, we will only do a sequel when we have a great story, and we like to do things that are different than the original. I mean, we all know those kind of sequels that are made seemingly just to print money that are exactly the same story as the first one. And at Pixar, we always strive to do something different. And with Cars, I love the world of Cars being alive and there's no humans. It's something that's very kind of personal for me because my dad was a manager of a parts department at a Chevrolet dealership in Southern California where I grew up. And so I always loved the idea of cars being alive. And so we wanted to do something really different for the second film. And I've always loved spy movies ever since I was a little kid. There was this American TV show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. that was on when I was a little kid. And I just loved that show. And so we thought it'd be awesome to maybe take a look at the possibility of doing a completely different genre for the second film. And the one thing I love about the spy movie genre is spy cars with the cool gadgets and all that stuff. And in our world, the spy car and the spy are one and the same. And I thought this could be really fun to do and something that's very different. So, as any good spy movie, it starts with a kick-ass spy opening.
Right.
And so we have a little clip from that the spy opening.
Fantastic.
Where you get to meet Finn McMissile, voiced by Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, for the first time. So here's the spy opening from Cars 2. Oh.